1. Welcome to Made for More Living.
One small step for man.
With Johnny Jennings.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
The fastest and most exciting hour of news, events, and real estate in Northern California.
And this is a fact that was proved.
Online at madeformorerealty.com.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Get ready. Here we go.
On the show today, we have somebody that landlords love, tenants fear, and is an all-around good guy. In all seriousness, this dude has one of the biggest hearts I know of, and it's an absolute joy and honor to have Barry Mathis on the show today. Thanks for being on the show, Barry.
Hey, Johnny, I really appreciate that, and we will try to keep the big heart part to ourselves. That doesn't help my tenant relations.
That's okay. I know. But here's the thing is that you run a successful property management company, right? Expert property management. And so let's talk about that a little bit, because people are always comparing, hey, if I can't, so the number one thing I'm hearing right now is I'm going to wait till spring to sell my house. That's the number one thing. The second most common thing I hear is, if I can't sell my house, I'm going to rent it out. So what is happening in the wonderful world of renting? How are rents looking right now?
You know, I think it's we've been coming off the back of a couple of years of rent increase after rent increase after rent increase. And for lack of a better word, I'm going to use a word that I think you might be familiar with. I think the market's kind of tired. And why might you be familiar with that, Johnny?
Well, I know what you're getting at because of the little event I did on Sunday.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm excited about. That is so awesome that you ran out and did a full Ironman. That is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, my wife is glad it's over because now she doesn't have to hear me complain about training anymore.
Yep. That was an incredible day for you. So I just want to celebrate that with you. And it's awesome. I mean, I cannot imagine 15 hours and 22 minutes to do that.
Yep. So think about what you were doing at 7:30 on any given day in the morning, and then imagine finishing around 10:30 at night.
Oh, my goodness. So you had a long bike run?
Yep. So it was a 2.4-mile swim, followed by a 112-mile bike ride, followed by a full marathon, 26.2 miles.
Oh, my goodness. And which part was the worst for you?
The bike, by far.
By far.
Hands down.
And what do you think that caused that?
I wasn't as prepared on the bike.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it comes back to the same thing everybody always says, training, right?
People said the bike's the easiest part. So I was like, okay, I'll do some training. But I tell you what, I'd only biked 56 miles prior to that, so half the distance. And it's a whole nother animal going another 56. So
wow. Well, that's incredible. I think that's something you're going to be able to carry with you for the rest of your life. And the fact that you started something and you didn't finish. I mean, you started something and you didn't quit before you finished. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
So many people start stuff, and I see this in the real estate community a lot. So many people start stuff and then quit, and they don't give it enough time. They don't dedicate to the fact that they're going to actually do it.
Yeah.
You know, somebody asked me the other day, I had some young people that were getting married. We just went to a wedding, and they talked about, what's the secret to a good marriage? I said the secret is take away the option of quitting.
Absolutely.
If you take the option of quitting off the table, then you don't quit.
You got to figure it out.
Yeah, you got to figure it out. Now, there's some reasons why you'd have to quit, abuse being one of those and sometimes infidelity being one of those. But other than those two big rainmakers, you should take quitting off the table for your marriage.
Yeah, so I remember vividly driving back from Kalinga to Bakersfield, Valley Ridge from Bakersfield. I was from Kalinga. And we were having this conversation. We'd only been together maybe 30, 45 days at this point. And the subject of marriage came up, and I was like, hey, just so you know, like, if I don't believe in divorce, that is not an option. Like, that is not an option that's on the table. And not to get too heavy too early in the relationship, but the conversation was kind of going that way, so it wasn't like out of the blue. It was like not like I was just sitting there driving, listening to country music, and then said, by the way, and she said, yeah, me neither. That's not an option for me either. And at that point, I was like, ooh, this chick's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we haven't been married for very long. We've been married since 2013, so what is that, 12, 13 years? So, but not having that option on the table has definitely helped us weather some storms. How long have you been married?
29 years.
29, coming
29
up. When's the big 3-0?
The big 3-0 is next year. We are going to Europe for a Mediterranean cruise. So
Nice.
That's our big play.
Congrats.
I've never planned anything so far in advance in my life.
That's awesome, though.
So, yeah, that is amazing. You know, I'm gonna stay on this. I know we just went way off topic with rent.
It's okay.
But let me get back on this for just a second, because I think these are valuable things, and it does play into investing, right? It does play into whatever it is your goal is. It plays into goal setting. I remember being on a cruise with you and Valerie, and you guys had a topic that was a big controversy at that time, and you worked through it. I'm not going to go into the nature of it because it's personal, but I remember that topic. I remember the issue that came up, and you guys, it was a big deal. It was one of those things that could separate people, and it didn't. You guys worked through it, and now you're celebrating your marriage, and you're celebrating how many kids now?
Yeah, two outside, one in the oven.
One in the oven. So I mean, just think if you had if you had allowed this difference of opinion or different of directions that you were facing back then to really pull you apart, if you had ground your heels in, none of the future enjoyment you're going to have from that family, from those kids, from the grandkids that are going to come down the road, that would have all been erased.
Yep.
If you guys had allowed pride or different ideas to get in your way and not been willing to work through a major issue, that's a big deal.
It is.
Think about the life that would have been missed. And so that's what really makes you sad for all the people you see that just walk away from each other.
Yep.
Their commitment level is so surface deep that when one thing comes up, they just walk, and it just takes away those, you can't, what's the old phrase? You can't make old friends fast.
Yep.
Old friends take time.
They do. And so to tie this back into investing a little bit too, though, is that people have goals. So for example, on the Ironman, I obviously had the goal. People ask me, how did you not quit? What were you thinking? Because they knew I struggled through the bike. And then to have to run a marathon after that. Like, what were you thinking? And I just, what would quitting feel like in the moment? It would feel incredible. It'd feel like a huge weight had just been lifted off. But what about when I wake up the next day? What about the day after that? What about a month later? What about a year later? How would I feel about that decision if I chose to quit? And so whether it's, running a triathlon or in your marriage, like, how's that going to feel when all of a sudden grandkids have to go to 2 different houses on Christmas? Right. And balance all that. How's that going to feel? And then what does this have to do with real estate? If you're thinking about buying an investment property and renting it out, and you choose not to do that because you want to do something else with the money, maybe something more temporary, how's that going to feel in the next 3 months, 3 years, 30 years from now, when you could be technically giving your grandkid or your child a rental property, as an inheritance type of a thing, rather than a trip to Disneyland?
Only guys like me and you could go from discussing the deep inner workings of our marriage to how about investing in real estate?
Let's pivot to that. Yeah.
So, but that is true, right? So that long-term delayed gratification, I think I said that wrong.
You got me confused now. Delayed gratification.
Gratification, yes. That I keep confusing satisfaction and gratification. So that delayed sense of getting what you want, right? In the long term, I believe that after 25 years of doing real estate, talking to hundreds and hundreds of investors, managing hundreds of properties, thousands of sales, I believe that the number one change in people's future in the economic strata that they're in is that when they buy their first house, that they don't sell the previous one. So that right there is the path of a real estate investor. It's the first time you buy less house than you could afford because you didn't sell the previous one to buy more house. You get the people that they're in a perfectly good 3-bedroom, 2-bath. They might need a 4-bedroom, because their family's growing, but instead they go out and buy a 6-bedroom monster Mac mansion, as they call it, right?
Yep. Their forever home.
Their forever home, and it's not their forever home.
You know that.
I know that. I love that. I'm a real estate broker, right? I love the fact that people aren't satisfied with what they buy for more than, 5 years. Great. We're going to sell you 4 or 5 houses, right? But what if you stayed in the same house for just one more cycle? And during that cycle, you were able to buy 3 investment properties, right? And then as the market peaked, you were able to sell 2 of those investment properties and pay off the 3rd one and keep it forever. Ain't that amazing, right?
That is incredible.
I once rented a duplex. I bought a new house and I rented a duplex. I was actually renting from a local builder, right? And I thought, man, I'm so cool. I'm going to pay this to his company name because I knew his company name, right? And he's a local builder. Everybody would know his name. I knew his company name, and I wrote the first rent check to his company. I got a call back from the office. They said, nope, you can't do that. You got to write it to him personally. I said, what do you mean? Well, he had built that house and paid for it 25 years ago, 30 years ago. It was in his personal name. It had always been in his family. He never sold it, right? So it just tells you the value of getting that one house paid off. And even though this guy was a multi-millionaire, very large developer in the area, he still owned that one duplex. And it was still in his name, still making his family money 30 years later.
Incredible. Still cranking it out.
Still cranking it out. Still getting that rent check every month, right?
Wow.
Putting that money to work for you. So now we're back to the rent market.
Yes. So rents. If somebody's thinking about selling their house, what's happening right now in the rental market? What would you tell that person?
Yeah. So right now is a great time to rent if you have that situation, right? You already own the house and you've got that property there and you want to just basically put it in the ice box. And that's what I tell agents. Hey, send me your referral. If it's not selling now, I'll put it in the freezer. We'll collect rents on it while we're waiting. And then when the market turns again or your client feels like they want that cash out at whatever price, then at that point, we'll go ahead and sell it. And so that's what I would tell people. If you already own that property and you're wanting to put it in the icebox, don't let it sit empty. Go ahead, live your life, do your lifestyle. Moved where you need to move to take that job, and let's turn your property into a rental. Rents right now have kind of tapered off a little bit in the local area. At a national level, they're down about 3%. In our local area, we're seeing a bifurcation, kind of like what we see in the pricing. We also see that in the rentals. The lower end is scooted up, so the lower end costs more to rent. That 2-bedroom, that 1-bedroom, that smaller place, smaller house, those prices have come up and are still climbing. But when you get up into the upper end, 5 bedrooms, the bigger houses, the nicer neighborhoods, we're starting to see those rents level off a little bit. Okay. And the reason I think is like what we said in the beginning, the market is tired. The market has reached that saturation point to where it's like, man, the jobs, the income, can we really afford to pay $4,000 in rent? We have people who can. I've got rentals at $6,500, at $5,000. So I've got people who can do that. But the normal run-of-the-mill property in Roseville, Rockland, when you're starting to get up into that $4,000 range, you're starting to push the boundaries. Maybe 45, but it's not moving up like it was. It's actually dropping down a little bit in those nicer homes. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So my concern when with sellers is they think, hey, I'll just rent it out for 6 months. I'm like, no. This is a long-term play.
Yeah.
Because prices are softening, and if you're wanting to get more than what the market can bear right now, that means prices will have to appreciate. So if you're going to rent, this is like more of like a long-term type of a solution. How long, what's the shortest, if somebody's wanting to sell their house and the market today isn't going to net them what they want, what would you recommend being the minimum length of time that they rent that property out when they factor in potential vacancies, appreciation, depreciation, in the rental market, and then flipping the property, get it ready to go back on the market?
Yeah, I think that you need to be more in the line of 18 to 24 months. For one, it's really impossible. We don't see in the future that far out there being a large increase in pricing, right? Not enough to cover the increase that's needed, right? So right now, I figure that most everybody on the market could sell if they drop their price 10%.
Yep.
I mean, that's just the numbers, right? When I look at what's selling versus what's not selling, there's a 10% gap, right? And so that tells us that what's selling and what's pending, those pendings are 10% lower. They're not lower in square footage. They're not lower in features. They're just lower in the fact that their homeowners that own them are willing to take the right number for the price.
Correct.
So that 10% adjustment would solve most problems. So now what you're really asking is, how long is it going to take for the market to go up 10 to 12%?
Exactly.
That's a different question. That's best predictions right now is somewhere in the 2 to 4% per year range for the next 2 to 3 years. We can't see further than 3 years because of all the dynamics associated with pricing and who's going to be in office and what the interest rate is and things like that. You just can't see further out than that 2 to 3 year window. And I don't see 12% increase in the next 2 to 3 years. So what you're really asking is, how much would they be willing to come down in the future? What's that number going to look like? And can I balance it out? I can put it on ice and get a good solid rent. I'll put a good solid tenant in there. And there's always risk associated with that, but we're going to do our best to get that done. We've got a lot of amazing tools to enable us to do that. But that's where we're at. Now, different case scenario, investing. Right? Mm-hmm. This is a different person. This is not the one. Go ahead and finish your thought on the seller. I think you had something else to ask there.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so I've been telling sellers is basically 2 years. Plan on roughly 2 years renting it out. If you're comfortable with that, then absolutely. I'll get you connected with Barry over at Expert Property Management, and we'll go down that route. But when they hear that 2 years, they tend to backpedal a little bit, and they're not quite comfortable. Like, they think it's just going to be a quick 6 months, maybe a year commitment, and they're not. They don't like the 2 year number.
Let's talk about the 6 months. Do you like to move?
Nope, I hate it.
Is it
almost as much as Iron Man's?
Yeah, it's like for most people, they don't really think about it. But when you ask them, how do you like the move? And they just hate it.
Yeah,
it is the worst singular thing they want to do. Well, guess what? Let's say you're a good neighborhood, a good house. I'm going to just pick the Rockland, for example, right?
Okay.
Or Roseville. Right, it's a nice house. It costs $600,000-$700,000. The rents are going to be between $2,500 and $4,500. Right, depends on the situation. Right, so probably about $3,000 in rent. Right, so the person that can afford to pay that rent doesn't like to move either. If they're a good quality tenant with good credit scores and a good job and a good rental history, they don't want to move somewhere for 6 months. The most common question I get from tenants, or maybe not the most, but one of the most common questions is this owner planning on selling? Is this owner planning on keeping this as a rental? Why? Because they want to live there for a few years.
Yeah.
The minimum lease I'm going to put out is going to be a year. Now, I could go lower, but again, the person you attract, the tenant you attract with that lower lease time period doesn't want to do it. And if they do, there's a problem.
Yeah,
they've got something going on that's causing them, in most cases, to want that shorter rent period. So I really would concur with you. If you're not planning on doing it for 2 years, don't do it. Just lower your price 10% and get out the door.
Yeah, move on.
Right. So it's just a big deal. So
agreed. Well, when we come back, we're going to be talking about investing, specifically property management and investing. And I'd like to learn more about some of the tools you have. I like to peek behind the curtain a bit.
Awesome. Will do.
All right, Thanksgiving is almost here. The holidays, Christmas is just around the corner. My wife is making her world-famous clam dip and peanut butter pie. How about you? What are your favorite recipes? Well, if you're thinking, hey, wouldn't it be nice to be in our new home by the time the holidays come around so we can invite all of our friends and family over? But you know what? There's not enough time. Baloney. There's plenty of time, but only when you work with our good friend Johnny Jennings and his team at Made for More Realty. They are the best. In fact, maybe that's one of the reasons why they were voted best team in Roseville 3 years in a row, why they have over 1,000 5-star Google reviews. They're going to get you the most money for your home or find you that perfect home within your budget in the fastest amount of time. So what do? You just Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty, and he'll make sure that you are in your new home, selling your home, or moving into that new home before the holidays get here. There is time. So again, just Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings. Online at madeformorerealty.com.
We are back with Barry Mathis with Expert Property Management. And in the first segment, we were talking about rents and how people are saying, hey, if I can't sell my house, I'm just going to rent it out. You should probably wait. If you're going to do that, plan on renting it out for 2 years or more. And in this segment, I really want to talk about, Barry, and what it is you're seeing in the investment side, because that's your bread and butter.
It is.
You have tons of different tools, tons of different ways to go about investing, tons of different ways to help investors. So what are you seeing on the investing side?
Well, I want to start out as just kind of leveling the playing field and giving everybody the tool that they can use to measure an investment, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the income the property produces and divide it by how much the property cost. Very simple ratio. You may think it's the cap rate, but it's a little bit different because we don't have all those expenses backed out, right?
Yeah.
So what we call this is the gross yield, right? And so income divided by purchase price is the gross yield of the property. And so what's nice about that is it really, you don't have to think about the mortgage. You don't have to think about everything else that's involved. And you can just look at that number and then measure a lot of different properties or property types across it. Now, once we look at gross yield, we don't ignore it. We do back out some numbers, depends on the asset class. So if you're looking at duplexes, which is one of the most common things that I look at, because it's a good tool of what investors are paying for investment property. The duplex is a great property. This is a property where one building, two sides, one owner, right?
Yep.
As opposed to a halfplex, which could have two owners. So duplex, one building, two sides, one owner. That property will give you some diversification. If one side's empty, the other side's probably full. They don't usually empty out at the same time. That helps you with your vacancy factor. And so that's a good number, a good property to look at. If I looked at all the properties, and I just did this morning, that closed out 2025 quarter three, third quarter, you'll see that those rents were about $39,000. The purchase price was around $580,000, right? And so that gives you a 6.87% gross yield. 6.87%. Divide one into the other, and you get about 6.87. Now, I happen to know, because I've done this a lot, you can calculate it pretty easily. Your taxes are going to be about 0.0115%. Insurance is going to be a little higher than it used to be. I now use 0.035, right? I used to use 2.5 against the purchase price, and that gives you what your rough insurance number is going to be. Then you've also got a vacancy factor, and you've also got some repairs are going to come into that. So when I back all those numbers out, I find that I'm going to lose about 2% of that 6.83. And so now I'm down to about a 4.7% cap rate.
Okay.
Right? So now I am looking at cap rate. I've just assumed what the expenses are going to be. I've taken that number out of the gross yield, and now I'm down at that cap rate. Now I can look at any duplex, and I understand that if that number comes down to 4.7% cap rate, then that's what everybody else is paying. So if I was in an area that paid more, so maybe I'm in an area that has a nicer property, like a duplex in Granite Bay versus a duplex in, let's say, Del Paso Heights. I'm going to expect that to have a lower cap rate because it's going to be a nicer property. It's going to produce rent, but it's also going to cost more, right? And so that cost is really driving it. And then I get over here, I'm going to go into an area like Del Paso that might have lesser quality of tenants. The tenants might not have that doctor income. They might not have those 800 FICO scores, right? Now over there, I'm going to want a higher cap rate to compensate, right?
For the risk.
For the risk. So there's your base number is 4.7, right? And 4.7 is your base number for cap rate. If you wanted to use if you don't have the expenses and you just want to use that gross yield, makes it easier, just use the 6.83. Does that make sense?
6.83, yeah. So again, let's just say, because a lot of people I hear them say, well, my house is worth so much more because of this, this, and this, and this. And I say, well, what are your rents? Oh, my rents are really low. Like, I could get more, but I just don't want to, make tenants mad.
So once you move into an investment property, the reason investors buy is to get a dollar's worth of income. Period. End of story. I don't care really so much about the appreciation. Now, asset classes matter. Single family is still treated like single family. But when I start getting into duplexes, fourplexes, apartment complexes, sixplexes, eightplexes, when I start moving into that, the only thing that matters is the cap rate. The cap rate sets the value rather than the location sets the value. So that's a really different way of looking at it. Now, here's the problem we face today. The problem we face today is you've got to put down, normally an investor has to put down what, Johnny?
At least 10%, if not 20.
Yep. Well, that's not going to work, because you're going to be negative cash flow. And now with 20, you're going to be negative cash flow.
Yep.
With 25, you're going to be negative cash flow. You'd have to go to 30 to 35% down payment to get positive cash flow with these 6.5% to 7% rates, which is what an investor is going to pay.
Yep.
An investor is usually going to pay about 1% more than what the general public is, right, for an owner-occupied property. There are some different types of loans that have some exceptions to that. For the most part, if rates are at 6%, then an investor is going to pay 7%. When I increase that percentage, I have to increase the down payment required in order to break even on the property, right? Because it drives up my financing cost. So that percentage, if it goes up 1%, I got to put 10% more down on my loan, on my property in order to buy it. So here I am at 30 to 35% down on a typical duplex. That's $600,000. I got to put $200,000 down in order to break even.
Yeah, you're not even seeing a return.
I'm not
on that.
making return.
Yeah.
Only by taxes. My taxes, a break-even property will still probably provide you a 20% return just on your taxes, right? So you'll get that appreciation, you'll get the depreciation, the tax deduction. You get all of those tax benefits, but that's not really what you want. So that's a problem. Investing in California right now requires a lot of money to go buy a new property that's going to break even. There are some solutions to that.
So if somebody though is saying, "Hey, my rents are low," and you own a duplex, triplex, fourplex, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like you've given up short-term pain for long-term pain.
Absolutely. You would do better to raise your rents and write your tenants a check, because that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
You would be better off to raise your rent and then give your tenants money for Christmas. Right? Give them $1,000. Give them a $2,000 stipend on Christmas if you want to.
That's creative.
Right? But what I want to see is the rents raised, right? Because those rents are affecting the value.
Yep.
Right? It's a little bit looser in the duplex range, definitely in the single family range. But once you get above that, that value is really determined by the income. And that's because most investors kind of understand what the numbers would be. But once you get up above that duplex, you really got to start raising those rents. And you're hurting yourself as a duplex owner if you're not raising rents. Now, what we've done in our personal investments is we switched over to an entirely different type of investing.
I was hoping you'd cover this.
Yes. And so what we've done now is we take that same investment, that same $200,000, and one of my partners, Gary Meek, if you know him, he's a 25-year veteran. Him and I have teamed up together, and we've started a company that invests in property. We'll take that same $200,000, and not only will we break even, but we'll generate a 15% to 18% cash-on-cash return. So we're generating good rents on top of that by turning to something called co-living. And co-living is pretty hot right now. If you go on YouTube, you'll find a lot of videos. We recommend Pace Morby's videos if you're out there. Pace Morby on co-living. And we have 2 properties here in the Sacramento area, and they're already rented as much as we can rent them. We're still building them out and making them work for our model. And once that's done, we expect that we're going to be hitting those high rent returns. We might be clearing $3,000 to $4,000 per property. And
But
so
this is
that's
a regular
great return.
single-family home, right?
Well, they're not regular when I get done with them.
Sure, but when they're buying them, these aren't like apartment complexes.
Yeah, no, not apartment complexes. So this is co-living. We take a single-family home that has good size, and we add rooms to it, and we rent those rooms out by the month. Those rooms are rent out individually. We don't do short-term rental. That's not what this play is, but we're doing regular rentals. Each person rents a room, and they share the common areas of the house, like the kitchen, some of the bathrooms. Those get shared, and then those people get a chance to live in a great house in a great neighborhood with good conditions, safe and secure, and really for an affordable price.
Yep.
So what we're finding is we're able to put people into safe environments for $850 to $1,250 a month. That's a big deal. There's a lot of people that need that. So not only are our investors making a great return, but we're providing affordable housing into the Sacramento area without having to go build a new house, without having to wait, 6 to 12 months to get something through.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal.
I have a client right now who he built this house, and he's doing the co-living thing. And that house would probably rent for maybe $3,000, $3,500, but he's bringing in over $5,500 a month, almost $6,000 a month in rent because of the co-living. And so if you're looking at, and getting into investing, that's a crazy, okay, you can get $3,000 over here, you can get $6,000 out of the same house. Just some minor tweaks.
So there are, and those tweaks, some of them are minor. On our case, some of them are major, right? So we tweak major. And so I don't know if I should say that. Am I
don't know if the radio would allow that. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm a tweaker
You're a major
or not.
tweaker. Yeah.
So I'm a major tweaker. So so there's a lot of different models out there. Some do arbitrage as a model. We do purchase. We buy that property. We're looking for great opportunities. Generally, we're combining some of our real estate experience and using subject to and assumable loans in order to get the financing down even lower. And then at the same time coming in and taking the property and increasing the amount of revenue it can get by adding bedrooms. And so we're kind of tweaking it on both sides. We're lowering the finance cost and increasing the revenue by adding bedrooms on. And so that's something that we are finding that's working good for us. And then on outside of that, I was excited with just the math, right? I'm a spreadsheet guy. Once I put it on a spreadsheet, that's what drives me. But what I found is the stories that are coming with the people that are moving in are incredible.
So the people are great.
So far, I mean, they're all a little unique, like we all are. So they all have their own story. But the fact that they love the place they're in. That, you know, I manage a couple of hundred traditional properties, right?
Yeah.
And not all of those tenants are kind and gentle and
thankful,
full of gratitude, right?
Yeah.
It seems like sometimes I'm working against the tenant, right? And I don't want to do that. I want to be providing housing that people are enjoying. And with these tenants, they're coming in and they're so thankful that they have a clean, safe place and they're being able to do it on the income they have. I mean, think about this for a moment. I think we get jaded. A lot of people in Sacramento make less than $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
I would say a third of the people in Sacramento make less than $40,000 a year. That's a big number, right? And the singles, there's at least 150,000 people in the Sacramento region that can't afford to live in an apartment on their own. They have to have roommates.
Yep.
And so this gives them a way of having roommates without being subject to any person's whims. One of our tenants recently applied. She had found a place to stay, but the person she was staying with was being abusive, was actually going into her room when she was gone, right? And that was a problem, right? As you can imagine for a young lady, right? So all of our rooms have door locks on them. They all have key-coded pads. Only the tenant has access to that. Our common areas have cameras in them. It's a safe environment, right? The externals to our properties are all well lit. I mean, we're making a home that's safe and secure for somebody, and we're doing it at a price that includes all the utilities, all the cable, all the internet, everything's included, and we're being able to do that for $850 to $1,050, or $1,250. That's a pretty good deal, right?
That is.
Not only that, the system that we use allows them to move from one co-living to another co-living if their job changes. We have telemedicine that comes in. They can have access to telemedicine. That's the number one reason why this is working class people. The people renting this, they're working class. The number one reason they miss work, they get sick. Well, what if I get them on the phone with a nurse that tells them, hey, you don't have a mom living with you to go tell you to take a pill, but here's what you need. When you got the cough, go take this and you'll get better. Here's some zinc tablets, right? So just that conversation, if somebody doesn't have anyone in their life, makes a big difference.
That's so freaking cool, Barry. I thought about the numbers as well. I didn't think about the positive impact it would have on the community and the people.
It does. And to be frank with you, it took me a while until I started hearing them say thank you. Gary Meek has a big heart. Out of the three of us, he's the big-hearted guy, right? And so Gary Meek actually has always been about that mission. But I started buying into it more when I started hearing these people's story. I sat in the living room after they moved in and just talked with them we got a living room set up and it's community, and just sitting there and talking to them and hearing their story, what they came from. And wow, I had one guy, he says, what do you do for quiet hours? I said, well, what do you mean? Well, between 10 o'clock and 8 o'clock, you want to keep the noise down. You got other guests in the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just common sense.
Sure.
And he said, no, that's not really what I mean. I said, well, what do you mean? And this is going by text. I really had a hard time figuring it out. He said, where I used to live, it was in a shelter, and they would make you stay in your bed during quiet hours. You couldn't get up. You couldn't go outside. You couldn't get up. You had to stay in the bed. And I was like, no, dude, we don't do that. This is your house. You can do what you want to in your house. Just don't make much noise. But we're not locking you in your room. And it almost brought me to tears to hear this guy's, his life had been so changed because of his financial situation. He was having to stay in places that I understand why they do that. I get it, but it's inhuman, right? Mm-hmm. It's not something you would want for anyone you love, right? And so this enables us to give a place that's safe and secure. And hey, if you're interested in finding that place, we've got a couple of rooms available. Contact me, 916-225-7777. And if you're interested in investing in such a place, we've got some opportunities for you that would give you a good return. We can't really give out numbers on the air, but it's a lot better than breaking even, I can tell you that.
There you go. Well, if you want to invest and have some amazing returns, reach out to Barry. Or if you just want to invest and provide clean, safe housing for people that need it, reach out to Barry. Again, you can always just find them online as well at Expert Property Management, or reach out to us at Made for More. We're happy to get you guys connected. Thank you so much, Barry, for being on the show today. It was a joy as always.
Awesome, man. Great to see you. Congratulations again on finishing what you started.
Thank you, Barry.
So yeah, it can be one of the most stressful times in your life, especially during the holidays, which add in their own stressors, right? Selling your home because you got to get it organized. There's all those repairs that need to be done, open houses, staging, working with a number of different realtors, but it doesn't have to be. It can actually be a very peaceful, stress-free experience for you because you're working with the best in our area. That's Johnny Jennings and his team at Made for More Realty. And he does have a team. They're going to help you through every step of the process, including maybe you don't want to go through open houses or staging or organizing or doing any of those costly home repairs, because he's got this program where he will guarantee at least 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. So you don't have to stress about that. Just Google him, Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty, and tell him you're interested in those 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. It's simple. It's easy. You can trust him. He's an honest guy. He's got a lot of integrity. He's genuine. Maybe that's why Johnny Jennings and the Made for More team have over 1,000 5-star Google reviews, or maybe why they were voted best team, #1 team in Roseville for 3 straight years. So if you're thinking about retiring out of state, or maybe you're getting older and you just want to downsize in the area, or you want to upgrade and move to a bigger home, whatever your needs are, Johnny Jennings is going to talk with you, and he's going to make sure, again, it's stress-free, simple, and easy experience that you're actually going to enjoy even during the holidays, so that you can enjoy this special season with your friends and your family right there in your new home. So whether you're looking to purchase a new home within your budget, or you want to sell your home for the most money possible, it's really easy, guys. Just Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty, Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty, and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, online at madeformorerealty.com.
So we are back, and we have probably the most special guest, aside from Valerie, we have ever had on the show. And I honestly kind of feel like this is a bit of like, most agents don't tell you who their transaction coordinator is. They will not give you the contact info because their transaction coordinator, their TC, is their secret weapon. And so today on the radio, we are now broadcasting our secret weapon, Miss Kathleen Wilkinson with Taurus Transactions. Thanks for being on the show, Kathleen.
Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you on here. And so let's go into this. So like I said, most agents will not highlight who their TC is. They want to bring them in-house. I know we wanted to bring you in-house, but you're like, hey, I know I'm too good for just one team. I want to work with as many people as possible. Plus, it's not just you, right?
Correct.
Who else do you have working on your team?
So, yeah, I actually have my daughter who works alongside me. She is the other part owner of our LLC. She's been a TC for about 5 years. And so, yeah, we kind of work together.
She's been a TC for 5 years. How long have you been doing it?
Over 13.
Over 13. Wow. Yeah. Lots of experience.
Yes.
And during that period of time, you were actually the lead TC, right, at SkySlope?
Yes. Yeah, I worked at SkySlope for years as one of the lead TCs. So I would train transaction coordinators and kind of manage a team of TCs under me.
And you got to see not only local markets, but like markets outside of ours and in other states, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. SkySlope is nationwide. And so I have TC'd in, 46 states. I've done a real estate transaction. Mm-hmm.
That's a great person to have on your team. Yeah. Great asset. And so you not only were you a transaction coordinator, you know, operating over 46 states, but you were training people. That's the key thing, is that you were so good. They're like, hey, Kathleen, we want you to help these other TCs get better.
Yes.
Get more better.
Yeah. So I managed my own book of business, as well as, worked and managed other TCs.
So what are the key characteristics that make you an in-demand transaction coordinator?
Ooh,
where
good
you
question.
Get tons of rave reviews. What are the qualities that you have that make you stand out?
I think being organized is one of the best. I mean, it's a very, real estate's very fast paced. There's a lot of deadlines. There's a lot of kind of things to keep track of, during the entire real estate transaction. So yeah, you have to be really, really organized and have really good communication skills. Your job is basically kind of coordinating everybody to come together and, close the deal.
And responsive. I would say responsive is huge. Like
Yes.
Valerie and I have had a number of transaction coordinators in the past, and the reason why we've stuck with you for so long is because you are responsive.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Johnny, most of the time I carry my laptop everywhere I go because real estate is not just, 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. It's busy on the weekends and things come up and you guys are, still out in the field all day, 7 days a week.
How do you deal with realtors who get anxious and stressed out and they're panicking and they pile everything on you like you're responsible for this deal happening or not happening?
You sound like you've worked with a lot of realtors, Matt.
How do you deal with those emotions?
I would say that every single real estate agent is like that. They are their own.
Come on.
Well, they
Come
are in the
on.
sense that their deal is the most important to them. So,
Sure.
And things are like, there's fires to put out sometimes. And so they're kind of like, hey, I need this done right away. And it's very, they're very, they can be demanding because their deal is the most important.
So how do you handle that, though? How do you handle all these little prima donnas?
Because I'd be terrible at this job. Oh, my gosh. I would be hanging up the phone and just be done. I would
too.
lose so many deals.
I was
because
mad at
could not
myself.
handle it.
I was mad at myself. I didn't make it through one transaction. And then I realized, Valerie, you need to help me with this. I cannot do this on my own.
Yeah, there's a lot of times I get off of those phone calls and I just take a deep breath and I kind of just talk to myself about, okay, let's calm down and let's just get this done. So
Put it in perspective.
You got to just, you have to put it into perspective. You have to have a lot of patience with real estate agents, I feel like.
All right, but you're really good. So I know we're kind of making fun of realtors.
Yeah.
And if the whole purpose of this is we want more people to use Kathleen because if you don't have a transaction coordinator, you're missing the boat. You're wasting time. If I see somebody Kathleen has the famous phrase. What is it?
To me, I always say if a real estate agent, like you never trust a real estate agent who doesn't have a TC,
Yep.
I mean, agents, your job is to be out there and be the face of your business, and it's to go out and get new business or go on listing appointments and these things like that. So I just feel like agents have to have a transaction coordinator that's doing the paperwork and making sure everybody's doing what they need to do and all the pieces are coming together.
So dive into that a little bit more for people that are listening, realtors who say, I can handle it myself, I got it. What are the benefits? What is the peace of mind that a transaction coordinator brings?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have, worked with agents on the other side of deals who do that, and sometimes that does work great for them. If they only do a few deals, a month or every few months, it might make sense to them. But like I said, I mean, in order to having somebody behind the computer doing the paperwork part, the tedious part, making sure, your file is audited for your broker and you're meeting all of the requirements that you need to
And
for
to
your
get
broker.
paid.
And to get paid. Yeah. So it gives the agent more time to be going out and getting more business, and working on, their book of business and building their, essentially their company.
So this is what I tell agents all the time. They're like, well, should I hire an assistant? Should I hire a TC? I'm like, yes, get a TC first. And they're like, well, this TC is one TC will charge less, some TCs charge more. And I'm like, you want somebody who's really good because a good TC, like let's say a TC charges, let's just say, depending on the suite of services they provide, because you offer, different tiers of things that you do.
Correct.
So let's just say it's $500 for a transaction.
Yes.
$500, just easy numbers. That TC is going to do so much work for you for that $500. And let's say your typical commission, let's say, is $10,000. So on a $400,000 purchase price, 2.5% of that, like a very common commission structure, that's $10,000. So the agent has the opportunity to make $10,000 and in that process spend $500, right? So to me, agents, whatever you're doing to generate that $10,000 is way more important than figuring out the $500 per transaction work. So that's why it's absolutely indispensable to have a Kathleen on your plate, so you can go out and find that 10,000 per transaction work, rather than focus on the pen. You're picking up pennies and tripping over dollars.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But so Kathleen, let's get some more about you. Lead TC at Skyslope. You've been licensed. Oh, I don't think we touched on that. You are licensed.
I am a licensed real estate agent.
That was huge.
That was huge. Yes.
When did that happen? That's been since I've known you.
So yeah, so my dad actually is a real estate agent as well. He was a broker, and just kind of did that on the side. And so it's something. And even being at Skyslope, I at one point went and did all the classes, and I just never went and took the test. And so yeah, I finally said, I just need to get this over with. I need to, as long as I've been doing this, I need to have my license. So, so I finally went and did it. And I think it's a good piece to have. I would never, this is, another piece. I would say I would never be able to do what the real estate agents do. Like, I have my license just because I feel like it's a good thing to have, but I'm not a real estate agent. I like being behind the computer and doing the contracts and that kind of piece of it. I like the transaction coordinating. So I always get agents tell me, like, I don't know how you do what you do. I would never want to do that piece of it. And it's kind of the same. I would never want to do what the agents are out doing.
And that is such so one, having you licensed means you can write certain things, you can do certain things that an unlicensed transaction coordinator could not do. Legally is not allowed to do.
Correct.
And sometimes, though, when people get licensed, they're like, you know what? I might want to trade in my $500 per transaction fee for that $10,000 per transaction fee. And you lose a great transaction coordinator because they want to become a real estate agent. So when Kathleen tells me, and believe me, she does not want to be a real estate agent. She does not. And so you have a licensed transaction coordinator who's not going to compete with you, who's not going to leave you, who's not going to all of a sudden decide they want to be a realtor. That is such a rare find.
Yeah.
So it's another feather in Kathleen's hat. Speaking of feathers, you have worked with some of the top teams in the area.
I have.
You've worked with who have you worked with?
Well, I worked on Tom Dave's team for a few years. Yeah, and his agents. I know Brent Gove, and there's been, I would say, the majority of my book of business are EXP agents. However, I TC for other brokerages as well. I have a Coldwell Banker, a couple Coldwell Banker agents, and then some small kind of mom and pop brokerages to where I kind of went in and created a system because they don't use Skyslope to house their stuff. So I kind of went in and we created a little system and how they can house their stuff and keep track of their stuff, and created a checklist of our own.
So the key thing, Kathleen, is broker agnostic. Whether you're EXP, Keller Williams, Remax, Coldwell, an independent broker, she can 100% help you with your files. And I just think it just speaks to the caliber of who you are, because you were with Tom Daves, you've worked for Brent Gove's team, you've been with the Made for More team. And you always seem to rise to the top wherever you are, Kathleen. So
thank you.
If you guys want to reach out to Kathleen, what is the best way to do it?
Email is great too. That's probably the best way, is email or phone as well.
Let's do phone.
Yeah. Okay.
What's your phone number?
It is 916-539-7808.
Perfect. And if you have any questions, you're like, Johnny, who was that fantastic transaction coordinator that was on your show? Just reach out to us. You can find us at madeformorerealty.com. We're happy to get you connected with Kathleen. That is the goal. We want more agents using good transaction coordinators, so that way a rising tide lifts all ships. Now, Kathleen, we do have a couple minutes left. So what are some typical tasks that you do to help agents that maybe your competition doesn't do?
Yeah. I would say probably, since being licensed as well, like I have, I've met photographers at appointments on listings, removed and added Supra lock boxes for my agents. I do the MLS input, obviously, for your team, as
Absolutely.
I do for a few of my other agents. So, getting the photos and being able to input all of the stuff for the MLS and saving it for that agent. agent just to go in and review and push live, I know it's a tedious task.
It is.
So yeah, I definitely, I help my agents write offers when they're out in the field. That happens a lot. They'll call me and they're, out driving from an appointment, but they want to get an offer put together. So definitely writing offers and just kind of being more hands-on, I think, on the listing side.
Something I think that makes you more unique as well is you have experience with Zillow Showcase. I don't know a lot of TCs that have experience with that.
Yeah, and that's a great thing, Zillow Showcase.
Zillow Showcase. So if you have questions, or you're thinking about doing it, or you are doing it, and you're like, man, this is just like another to-do thing. I wish somebody could take this off my plate. Look no further than Kathleen Wilkinson. She can help you with that. Aside from, what's your goal, Kathleen? Because I know you're doing this with your daughter. It's Taurus Transactions. You got the LLC.
Yes.
What's your goal in the next 3 to 5 years with this LLC business?
I just think growing the business, with her and I, she, it's her book of business isn't as large as mine, but, definitely I think growing the business together, I think is our biggest goal right now. Yeah.
Perfect.
And kind of merging together. So there's a lot of things that, there's been times to where if she's not able to do something, I'm able to hop in and assist her agents, and vice versa. If I'm out doing something and one of my agents needs something urgently, it's really helpful that, I have her just to call up and yeah, absolutely. Because as you know, things come up all the time and it's time sensitive, and I needed that yesterday. Everything is I needed it yesterday. So
my goodness. And you have good relationships too with a lot of the title companies.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've worked with, probably hundreds of title officers, I think, over the years.
How, so I'm always curious what a transaction coordinator's file limit is. Like, what would you say between you and Riley? Like, how many files could you guys process a month? So
I would say, when I was at SkySlope, our file capacity was a lot larger. I think at the peak at SkySlope at one point, I don't recommend it, but I had 118 escrows. This is going at one time. That was just when, things were just getting really busy. So I don't recommend that. But I definitely have the bandwidth to do. On average, I think we were usually in the 60 to 80 file capacity range over there. Yeah.
Got it. So you have the bandwidth. You're looking to take on clients. You and Riley are ready to rock.
Yeah.
One more time, what's that phone number?
It is 916-539-7808.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Kathleen. It was a joy.
Thank you so much.